year to year how these incremental little changes are happening in football. So we bring in Warren Sharp to the herd today. Let's start, Warren. What happened last year in 2018, or maybe 2017 and 2018, that leads you to believe that we'll see more of it in 2019 analytically?
I think one of the interesting things that nobody really discusses is building that lead in the first half and how important that is. Just 5 years ago, if you strip out games where teams have like 2 or more turnovers, lose a turnover battle, or double-digit underdogs, just look at games that are like relatively close and no turnovers. The team that leads in the first half, just 5 years ago, only won 64% of the time. Now it's up to over 80% of the time. So teams need to stop establishing the run, trying to avoid mistakes, coming out conservative early in games with a run-heavy strategy on early downs, and instead be aggressive, dictate to the defense. Don't be afraid to pass the ball. The floor on first down passing has improved tremendously, higher completion rates. Get the ball out of the quarterback's hands, make efficient plays, and try to build leads in the first half. The goal is to make your opponent adjust to something that's less efficient at halftime, rather than coming out and trying to be conservative and just playing in these games where you hope to keep them close.
Okay, analytically, Jarvis Landry, OBJ, will it work? Landry is a volume receiver. OBJ is going to want his touches. They have David Njoku. They have good backs. OBJ and Landry, does it work analytically?
From a just pure analytics perspective, having good wide receivers who excel at getting open theoretically will definitely help Baker Mayfield identify matchups and throw the ball to receivers that have greater amounts of separation. So the offense itself should theoretically be more efficient from a passing perspective, and that's obviously going to help Baker Mayfield, and passing helps much more than rushing, so the team should win more games. Where it could hurt, obviously, is the individual statistics from a yardage and a reception standpoint cannot be as high as they've been when they weren't playing together. That said, I will note that if they get down the field more often, because the offense is more successful, they might have similar amount of red zone targets simply because they're having many more trips to the red zone than the Giants had last season, for example. But that said, overall, it's silly to think that their statistics will be similar together than they would be separate.
Zeke, I say trade him, accumulate picks. He's a lot of noise. What do analytics say if you did trade Zeke from the Cowboys?
Well, I think that's actually not a bad suggestion whatsoever. It'll obviously hurt to a slight extent, the drop-off between Zeke to a number 2 running back. But it's really what fans need to understand is it's more about the offensive line than the running back themselves. Dallas has the number 1 most expensive offensive line in the NFL. They spent a lot of time drafting and building that line. They were the most expensive in the league last season. They had some injuries, so they weren't quite as good as they had been in the past. They should be a really good line this year. If the goal is to win games, where you should be investing the most in is good coaching, a modern offensive system that exploits edges, and a good offensive line in addition to your quarterback. We will see if Dak is their franchise caliber quarterback with Zeke not being there. However, you need to see that anyways. And in my opinion, definitely aren't going to get the same level of drop-off that a lot of people think because of how great this offensive line is.
Biggest turnaround this year in the NFL. I've got my teams that I think will double their wins. Who's your big turnaround team?
Well, I don't know how much it'll manifest on the actual win and loss column, but the San Francisco 49ers are the team that was shockingly much better from my analytics perspective in 2018 than their 4-12 record indicated. What Kyle Shanahan did with that caliber of quarterbacks and the number of injuries they had on both sides of the football was astonishingly great. And this team, from a who do you not want to face last year that was a 4-12 type team, this is that team that you're not going to want to play in 2019 because I think overall from top to bottom there's going to be a tremendous amount of improvement in this club, and it's going to set up for very good close games. And, if they get their luck and turnover luck goes their way, this could be a team that has a winning record this upcoming season.
Finally, Melvin Gordon. You can make an argument. I've heard this from executives. He's been hurt. He's small. He's been a workhorse. Do you sign him to another long-term deal?
I can't see it. Look, just last year was kind of his breakout year, but prior to that, I mean, I and a lot of other guys were looking at his metrics and saying that this guy was a bust. And if you're talking about which running backs are replaceable, literally the two best backs from the 2017 season, the guys with the most fantasy production out there, were Le'Veon Bell and Todd Gurley. And both of them had to be replaced in 2018, and both backups came in and outproduced from an efficiency perspective those two-star running backs. So if you can replace two of the best in the league, you can certainly replace the guy like Melvin Gordon, who had one good season. I'm not saying he's a bad back, but I'm saying I wouldn't invest a large amount of salary into a guy like him. And just by the way, Justin Jackson delivered a higher success rate than he did, than Melvin Gordon did last year, and was substantially more efficient, especially when you take away the fourth quarter garbage time stat.
By the way, I have the Niners being kind of a dark horse Super Bowl team. I think they're going to compete. I want to throw one more team out. We got a minute left. I think Tennessee is going to be the team in the league that actually wins playoff games. I think Vrabel can coach. They ran for 2,000 yards. They were the least penalized team. They have a legitimate backup now. I think he proved he can win. What do you make? What do the analytics say about Tennessee? They have a very, very good offensive line. What do the analytics say about the Tennessee Titans?
Well, we know that offense is what leads to wins and losses in the league, and the problem right now for me with Tennessee is I don't know what Marcus Mariota really is. I was not impressed by Matt LaFleur. That offense ran the ball more often and with less success than in either year of the exotic smash mouth last year. And new offensive coordinator Arthur Smith said, we're just going to do a lot of what Marcus Mariota did last year because we don't want to change too much. They play the number 3 most difficult schedule of run defenses this upcoming year. It's going to put a lot onto Mariota's plate. He's going to have to perform really well for them to have success. I know they've been a very consistent team from a win-loss perspective, but I just don't see the really high ceiling on this team. I think the floor is high, but I'm worried about their ceiling.
Boy, this is great stuff. Warren Sharp's 2019 football preview is out now. If you're into analytics, I'm already burying myself in that book. I did it on the Utah vacation. So Warren Sharp of sharpfootballanalysis.com. Love it, Warren. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Colin.
See, now, Warren's the kind of guy that if I like the Titans and he tells me beware, I'll just beware. I'll sell all my stock. Seriously.
It's blind trust.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys I trust. His analytics are fascinating. He loves the Niners like I do. I like Tennessee more, but again, his reasoning, I just sold all my Titan stock.
Now, are you still?
Well, hour 3 next. We'll talk. That hurt.
Thanks, Golden Corral. Dan gets his slow smoked sirloin, and my little trio are as happy as shrimp. Oops, clams. And Mom got it all. Hook, line, and sirloin. The slow smoked sirloin and shrimp trio. Golden Corral, the only one for everyone.
April 18th is National Piñata Day, but you don't need to hit a paper